From the National Post, welcome to Canada, my friends. The King's land acknowledgement undermined his own authority. The throne speech, which was supposed to be a subtle message of buzz off to the U.S., put Canadian sovereignty into question. I completely agree. I actually don't care to read about his silly op-ed, other than he made the point. But I think we have a link to the actual speech given by the... Oh, we don't. Let me pull up the King Charles land acknowledgement, and let me see if... do we have it right here? I don't want to play a short. Read the full speech.
It's pretty ridiculous.
I would like to acknowledge
Here we go.
that we are gathered on the unceded territory of the Algonquin and the Shinabeg people. This land acknowledgement is a recognition of shared history as a nation, while continuing to deepen my own understanding. It is my great hope that in each of your communities and collectively as a country, a path is found toward truth and reconciliation in both word and deed.
King Charles, who is the King of Canada, just said that they were on unceded territory of the Algonquin people. Let me clarify. That is the king saying they are illegitimately occupying foreign land. I believe that Donald Trump should now go to the Anishinaabeg and Algonquin people and offer them $10 billion for all of Canada.
Silly names.
I don't think it costs that much.
Yeah.
Probably like
well,
$3 billion.
Maybe. You know.
How about let's go back to the old days, offer them some shells and
A little
and
handful
take
of
the island.
beads.
Yeah, some beads. No, you know what's funny is like no one understands that. You know, in these crown countries, like their governments are still technically under the king, right? I mean, if I have that right, even though they're independent democracies, the king could still come in and unseat MPs. That's my understanding. 'Cause I know in Australia, as far back as even the 70s, I think the Queen had to come in and like remove one of their
70s, she
their
dissolved
MPs.
the,
And so when the king says that, I was laughing because I was like, this is when wokeness actually gets completely out of control. It's funny when like a celebrity comes on, you know, I think it was the Academy Awards, the last one, and they started out with like, this is the Mawunga Boonga Oonga Ooga Booga tribe. And we acknowledge them and you're like, you know, you stupid celebrity. But the king, I think a lot of the conspiracies about him are probably true. I think this guy's blackmailed. And remember, he's also the one that's like people question whether he might be Muslim. Do you know about that one too? That he might have converted to Islam?
Wait a
King
second.
Charles?
Yeah, did you hear about that?
I don't believe it.
You don't know about? I mean, I didn't say I believe it. I said I've seen pretty convincing arguments that he converted to Islam. But I do bring this up. He's not helping his case from the conspirators because when you do stuff like this, and you're not senile like Joe Biden, it makes me wonder if this is genuinely like a intentional undermining of British sovereignty and Western imperialism. I don't think it could be anything else. Like, it's got to be intentional.
You would think that the King of England, especially, it's not like, you know, he's a teenager. His mother was the queen for 70 years or something like that. He is very familiar with all of the protocol that a king, you know, has to go through. So this seems ridiculous that he would do this because he should have known.
I think Trump needs to publicly. I'm not that I think Trump would actually try and claim Canada, but I think Trump should post a truth right now saying that the king, the king has acknowledged his illegitimate claims over Canada, and we will no longer we no longer recognize the Canadian government as legitimate by the king's own words.
It would be funny.
I'd do it if I was president.
And I wouldn't put it past Trump, but like, can we talk about the seriousness of this though? This needs to stop. This land acknowledgement stuff, the welcome to country in Australia, New Zealand. Like, what the hell is this?
I completely disagree.
What?
This is fantastic because it creates one of two scenarios. One is that Canada's government is illegitimate, for which we need to only negotiate with the Algonquin and Anishinaabeg people, or the left must now recognize that conquerors have the claim to a land.
Yeah, well, when do you get to own the land? How long do you have to be there? How many wars did you have to win?
Who cares? My point is, if the left says, oh, he didn't give the land up, I would respond with, I completely agree. When we conquer land, it's ours. And if they go, no, it is the Anishinaabeg people's. Like, okay, Donald Trump should negotiate with them instead, and Canada's government's illegitimate. They might actually say yes to that. You know, I love the land acknowledgement stuff for one reason. We ain't doing it in the United States right now. And so long as we don't, I could give a damn if Australia, New Zealand, Canada, and the UK are doing whatever land. I don't know what the UK is going to do. Who is there before the current government? I don't know.
According to the BBC, black people, I don't know if you saw the Ancient Brits documentary. They were like, it was like Zubi's ancestors apparently were the original founders, the Nigerians. No, but okay, but this is where I think a little personally, this breaks my heart, is like, I want to see a strong West. Like, I want to see a unified front, not this NATO bullshit like, oh, we got to stand with Ukraine, FAFO stuff, like a genuine, like, these are our nations, right? Like white people are only 7% approximately of the global population. We have these nations that we built that are wonderful. We exported our culture to the entire world. I mean, you go to China and like, you know, Western technology, like the skyscraper is the you know, at the precipice of even what they're building today to become strong themselves, even the way they've opened up to our capitalist ideas and free trade to become a stronger nation. And then they're using our ideas to become stronger. And then we're apologizing to people that sound like the tribes are named something from Scooby-Doo, the Wooga Booga tribe or something like that. I mean, really, like, doesn't it kind of break your heart a little bit seeing Western countries collapse into this frail, apologetic, like, weakness? Doesn't this make us all lose in the West?
As long as in the end we conquer the Commonwealth nations, I'm fine with it.
I don't think we would do.
I don't think Donald Trump right now is talking about Canada becoming the 51st state. And if the end result of their land acknowledgement, weird woke, we recognize the sins of our ways, if that resulted in Trump saying, okay, your country's ours now, good luck. I'm like, all right. More for us. These people who don't believe in conquest and think it never existed, it's a silly notion that we have to give the land to whoever was there a long time ago. Because everybody just claims they were there first. And then no one actually knows who was there first, and then you fight over it. So we have a government. Canada has a government. No, Canada's not going to abdicate control of the land to the Algonquin people, right? But my point is, let them undermine their own sovereignty. That's their own opinion, people writing this. And then Trump can come out and use that claim against them. If this persists and those nations collapse, then the strong must survive.
I just don't think this is.
How would it benefit the U.S. to take on
cheap oil?
Canada?
They've got tar sands.
On Canada?
Okay.
I mean, first of all, we get access to the Northwest Passage in its entirety if we control Canada. But they also have the tar sands, which is oil for us. Not that we need all their oil, but hey, that's good oil. Also, land is generally just good. There's resources there. I think they have a certain degree of rare earth minerals in the north. You've got, we could add more caribou to our diet, which right now is largely in Alaska. Who doesn't want free land? You know what I mean? The tar sands is the easy one. And my point ultimately is, for what reason should I as an American care that Australia, Canada, and New Zealand are gutting themselves with crackpot ideology and destroying their way of life? It just means that for us in the United States, if Canada were to break down because of these absurdities, it'll make it easier for us to get their stuff. Like it'll make it cheaper to trade with them. I'll put it that way.
You don't think China is going to also like take advantage of these weaknesses? Like look at Australia too and New Zealand.
They've been and they are.
I know, but as their
China's
weekend,
the biggest spender of foreign policy lobbying in the United States.
Yeah, I was in El Salvador. Okay, I went down there to go try to understand how fascism like sort of saved that country. It's a very unique position. And I was with some government officials, and one thing I noticed when touring some sites was that like they're building a new stadium in San Salvador, and it literally says like a social project of the Chinese Republic, and I was like, you can just tell your people straight up that China is building this? And he's like, yeah, China's putting billions of dollars into El Salvador because why? They want to control the port down there, apparently. They want access, I don't know if it's trade or military. They're putting a bunch of money into Central America. And so about half the social projects, I was talking to a government official, are direct competition from the actual Chinese communist government. And so to me, like, you know, when you had a destabilized country like that, right now when it's stabilizing, you do have competition between the West and the East trying to gain control of this newfound government that's, you know, some people question whether or not what he's doing is democratic, but it worked, right? As he said, like, should we give up the freedom of 6 million for just like 60,000, you know, basically take away some human rights to save the entire population? My point is like, I haven't seen this be good for any of these Western nations. And maybe it's just because I'm a little bit of an identitarian myself. I'm a Western identitarian. I love the idea that I can go from country to country. You kind of don't feel like you left the United States. There is a lot of Western and American dominance in these countries. But like seeing the downfall of Canada in the last 15 years, seeing even just the Canadian dollar collapse, the Australian dollar collapse, to see the fact that like, you know, the cultural demographic makeup is looking more like the East. Like, do you see that recent video of Niagara Falls where they said that like basically tourism revenue's down, but visits are up. And it's because they said it's day visitors from Brampton that are visiting Niagara Falls. It looks like you're in Punjab. You see the video, it's crazy. There's not a single Western person there. And so it's like, when you see the fact, it's like, there's real consequences of weakening these countries that I don't think we've realized yet. And I'm like, I don't know, like, I don't think that the America benefits from any other Western nation being weaker, especially on our front.
Let me ask you something. What was the racial demographic of these countries before they said like this area looked like Punjab? What was the racial makeup of it?
Almost entirely white. Yeah, like Canada up until like what 20 years ago,
so
like
how
98% white.
How did it end up that it's not anymore?
Immigration. They Trudeau changed the immigration. He like let in all these temporary visa holders and then apply for residency.
What's Trudeau's ethnic background?
Cuban. It's alleged.
What's his ethnicity?
I think Cuban.
Probably
He's white.
Anglo.
I like genuinely think he's Cuban.
And Cubans are what? Like the Cubans you're referring to are Spaniards? So they're European?
He's white.
No.
He's white.
Justin Trudeau's a white man. The Democrats are white people. All of these Commonwealth nations were largely run by white people. And in the studies that we've pulled up, the one ethnic group with an out-group preference based on race are white liberals.
This is true.
So the funny thing is, when I hear this talk about like I certainly get why people are upset that, you know, there was a country, it was colonized, it was conquered, whatever you want to call it. I mean, I blame white people. Canada was a country largely of white people,
But
and then they
desires, or maybe it's our government stopped caring what we think. Like when Theo Vaughn said, it seems like no matter what we want, our government does what it wants.
Yeah, people don't vote
no
for
one's been
mass
polled
immigration.
for this. Yeah, like when you poll these countries, they didn't want it.
So
like,
how come
Irish people don't want it.
Why doesn't it happen in China?
Why doesn't it happen in China?
Because the Chinese government actually wants a good sovereign nation.
And what ethnic background runs the Chinese government?
Han.
And why doesn't it happen in Japan?
Well, it might be actually. They're switching their immigration policies possibly.
Sure, but it hasn't.
Yeah.
And it's funny because in Japan, racism is humor. Not kidding. Like,
so is it white people that control the government just because he happens to be white? Like,
no, my point
also,
is,
wait. Also, Trudeau's immigration
This is a-
minister was Jewish. So.
and the Mexican
My
president is
point
Jewish. Do I
is-
blame Jews for the corruption there because she happens to be ethnically
my
Jewish?
point
No.
is, you have all of these white countries that are experiencing this problem that non-white countries are not for the most part.
They didn't vote for it. So like blaming the white populace for the
disagree.
collapse. They didn't vote for it. They don't
Are you
want it.
Kidding? Democrats, 70 million voted for Kamala
No, we didn't poll on.
The AFD, like, did that not get the most votes in Germany? And now the government is literally monitoring the party and trying to shut it down.
And what's
Like the
the
German people,
what's the
the
ethnicity
majority
of
of
that
the
government?
So,
Bro, like I don't understand why the
I'm
acknowledgement
saying-
is simple. White countries did this to themselves.
I would say it has to do with an occupation. There's something that happened after World War II where our governments are moving towards this liberal democracy, this universal democratic, hegemony. Look at Romania, what happened with the election.
Agreed.
So my question is, and this is before I want to
Liberal economic order.
Well, look, I'm actually going to defend Jewish people here for a second in saying this. Do I think because Zelensky's Jewish that I'm going to blame Jews for the downfall of Ukraine? I don't think that's fair to say just because he's ethnically or religiously, maybe he's atheist, but he's ethnically Jewish, that it's the Jews' fault. Because I don't think that when you look at the actual polling, that's not, USAID backed polling, but actual polling, it looks like he's not very popular and they want the war to end. Ukrainians want the war to end. So we have a problem in Western countries post World War II that our governments are enacting some sort of a UN agenda that is not representing what the people wanted. Like Ireland, there's this city that was 98% Irish. Someone could put the name in the chat. And they had a vote of whether to put an immigrant center in the city. The city voted like 4/5. It was like over 80% voted against it. They built it anyways, arrested anybody who tried to stop it. And now the city is like 37%
What's the ethnicity of the cops?
white. Well, that's what I'm saying. They're probably white.
In
yeah.
the UK,
Irish.
every single day I watch white cops arrest people for this stuff.
Yeah, I remember the German guy that was like trying to arrest, he ended up dying, right? He got stabbed in the back. He was trying to save the guy. I have a real question for you. That's what I'm saying. I don't think we could blame white people because I think the government is just doing what they want. And people out of desperation are voting because they've been told democracy or voting is the only way out of this. You have to vote for who you have to vote for. You get Trump or Biden. It's not like there's 20 options and then all of a sudden there was this one really good option that was going to change things. You have this sort of uniparty here. And I think in every Western country, the governments are working against their people. White people are not pro mass immigration from these countries when polled. So how is it their fault? If the government's rogue and not representing them, maybe our only fault is not absolving our own governments. We're not going to war with our governments. But
Half of this country supports the Democrats, and maybe it's slightly less You know,
That's
but
fair enough,
You've got 70 million people at least who want the Democratic Party.
Yeah, that's fine, but there is like all polls and stuff. They say that like the American people are like 70% want to see deportation.
Yeah, but I always say this: polls are great, especially in aggregate, but voting matters more. So when Donald Trump wins the popular vote, and then they come out a month later and say, "But the polls say he's bad," I'm like, don't care, because the only poll that matters is the polling box, and Trump won.
Well, and I think that I think that lends to to evidence that the American people do want to see deportations, because that was the
49.8%.
Well,
Sure.
that was the thing that
my
Donald
point
Trump-
is not that Kamala won the election. It's that 75 million voted for her.
I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that if you've got these polls that say that 66% of Americans want to see deportations, and Donald Trump wins the popular vote and the Electoral College, that strongly indicates that most Americans do want to see deportations.
Yeah, and look
And what does that have to do with my point?
But look what's happening right now. I mean, Trump.
What did that have to do with what I
Trump's
said?
president, and he's being blocked by these liberal judges because there's just so much rot in the system.
The way that I understood what you were saying is that it's not the American people that actually want to see deportations. Did I?
No, my point is that about half of this country are okay with open borders.
But they're not.
But they are. They vote for it.
Okay, well, also keep in
like-
mind that prior to the election, Kamala reeled back a lot of her extreme rhetoric in order to appeal to the center. And also, I just met one of these Democrats the other day. Just because someone voted Democrat, that doesn't mean that their heart is in every last bullet point of the Democratic Party platform.
Sure.
I met this guy, and he said that he's more socially conservative than almost all Republicans that I've met. And he worked for, actually, the Biden administration and the Biden campaign and the following Kamala campaign.
That and $5
He said,
will
there are
get you a cup
some
of
things
coffee.
I'm not allowed to say around these people.
Right. And that and $5 get you a cup of coffee. So when someone comes to me and says, "Look, I don't like the Democrats, but I voted for them," I'll be like, "Then you support open borders." Now you can tell me you don't like open borders, but you do support it. And if they say, "I don't support it," like, you literally lent your support to the party of open borders who opened the borders. What do you think support means? It means you are literally, as an individual, holding up their system with your actions.
Well,
There are
if we
a
are
lot of
talking
people-
just ideologically, the popular sentiment is behind mass deportation
And they're also
Sure.
and immigration.
And that's what, 55%? My point is, when we are saying that the people don't choose their government to do these things, that is not correct. Donald Trump won. Donald Trump is now deporting people, shut the border down. I am very happy about what he's doing. I spoke with Tom Homan today. He was fantastic. But these Democrats might try and publicly play to the center, but they will. I mean, look at when Bill Maher said, "If a recession stops Donald Trump, then bring on a recession." Literally saying, destroy the economy and ruin people's lives. I hate Trump that much. Now, you can go to Bill and talk about wokeness and all that stuff, and this was the issue with him. He might say to your face, "Hey, man, I don't like any of those things." But if a guy says, "I'm not a bank robber, I hate bank robbing," and then he goes and robs a bank, he's a bank robber. My point with all of this is, we've looked at the data that shows white liberals are the only rate. So out of all ethnic groups, the only group with an outgroup preference to any degree is white people, specifically white liberals. So when we look at all of these policies, it is an ideology among white people. My point is simply that not all white people, of course, want this. But when people talk about the ethnic makeup of this area or that area, I'm like, right. If we're talking about ethnicity, it is something about white nations. Take a look at like the indigenous countries of white people, which is the various countries in Europe. Where are they now? Except for Poland, largely opened their borders to all these different ethnic, immigrants of varying backgrounds, largely sub-Saharan African immigrants in Europe. China didn't do that. Japan didn't do that. Even
the
under
governments
occupation.
did that, but that doesn't mean that there's popular support. And also,
one said
obviously there is an issue with white guilt, but why do you think that is? I mean, people are born into this system where they're told from a young age that you're basically evil for being white.
White people.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would say
Agreed.
by white
Well-
people. I have a real question for you, though. So this is a kind of a point of contention. So I had a point of contention with Nick Fuentes. He was telling people not to vote for Trump. I was telling people to vote for Trump, okay? And people were saying, "Oh, if you vote..." Well, he was telling people not to vote for Trump, and I was telling people to vote.
Because he's
I
just
was
first.
And I was claiming, we had a disagreement because I was claiming that Number one of my assistant producers at the network, check it out, rifttv.com. He was looking at 5 years in prison for a stupid J6 bogus charge, right? And I was under investigation. I go, this is really selfish, but I know that Trump will pardon these people. His entire presidency depends on it. And there's one main reason I'm voting for him. It's for my friends to be absolved of their fake criminal charges. However, everybody knows, probably one of the biggest criticisms I've seen, even in your chat when I've come on in times, is like, oh, like I mentioned in the beginning, Elijah's on here, we're going to hear Israel's bad or this or that. It's like, okay, look, everybody knows I'm anti-Zionist. I don't agree with it. And I knew Trump was I think he's a bigger Zionist than the left. I think he supports Israel unequivocally more than Biden or anybody did. So are you going to sit here and say, because I voted for Trump, because I knew that there was friends I didn't want to go to jail, and I did feel like economically and also in other areas, including the value and the patriotism of our nation, including the strength of our military, that Trump would be a better choice, that somehow I agree with the focus being on removing funding from universities. No, it's like, yeah, so you're not blaming me for that.
I literally said that you can disagree with something, but there's a question between whether you agree with it or support it are different things.
But I'm saying the majority of Americans, I believe, from what I've seen in real polling, disagree with the immigration crisis right now, both legal and illegal. They want to see people deported. They want to see legal immigration down. They want to
not if Trump's doing it.
No, I think that people want it. And then unfortunately, they look around. I think people are disillusioned going, why does Kash Patel say he's going to do all these things? And no matter who gets in, nothing changes. So I'm saying, I also think people are intentionally misinformed. So like you're saying, well, why would they vote for this? I don't think people are all informed and intelligent. I think
Nick was right.
What?
If Nick's point was don't vote for Trump.
Was he right? That's what I'm asking. Was he right or was I right? I don't know.
If Nick's point is vote for Trump as a vote to support Israel, he's correct. Functionally correct.
I agree.
Yes. But the question is, do you lend your support to things you don't like because there are things you need? That's it.
I think either way you're going to get support for Israel. I mean, Kamala's married to a Jewish man. I didn't think we were going to see a change in that party. But my point was, I'm saying, but with what you're saying, like, oh, it's white people. I'm saying the polling shows the popular amount of white people statistically do not support these things, but the government does it anyways. And because we're in a democratic system where everyone has to say, and I will disavow it, I disavow violence. We're just trying to vote our way out of it. When it turns out in the American primary system on certain issues, that especially on Zionism, that you are not going to really get, I'm thinking of Brandon Herrera here, you're not going to really get a candidate on the Republican or Democratic side who agrees with me on that issue. They're going to put two people who agree on the Zionist issue to fight left and right. That's a losing battle for me. I don't even try to fight it anymore on a voting level because I realize I'm not going to vote my way out of support for Israel. That's not going to happen in this current electoral cycle or with this generation of people running because the way the primary system's set up. So with white people, I'm saying maybe the system got rigged by people, and I have to ask the question, why would white people intentionally create an international government system that not
economic order?
Well, why would they do this that doesn't even focus on the deaths of white people from World War II? We don't even talk about how many.
Why did they open trade with China?
Well, this is what I'm trying to ask. Why would we create a system to engineer our own destruction?
Because they didn't think that was going to happen. They thought opening trade with China was going to liberalize China and make China subservient to us through trade, and that's the opposite happened. China exploited the United States, took our manufacturing, and then mocked us for it. Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.